they will be held accountable. We can't vote them out. Clear the Bench Colorado, and clearthebenchcolorado.org is the website. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. One of the great things I think about Matt's movement that's very important that he didn't mention, but it's my understanding that you have the opportunity to vote these people out every 10 years. Is that right?
Right. Your next opportunity is 10 years down the road. And one other thing I didn't mention is because this is a census year and a reapportionment year, Malarkey picks 4 out of the 11 commissioners on the reapportionment commission. And oh, by the way, last time they decided that they got to take over the powers of the legislature and drew up our congressional districts as well. So unless you think we're going to take back the House, the Senate, and the governor's office, we might, but we'd have to do a complete sweep. And even if we did, we would still not have a majority on that reapportionment commission because Malarkey picks 4 out of 11. The best we could do if they're still in power is we lose 6-5. We've got to vote them out.
Thanks, Matt. We're going to do questions after all the speakers. I'm sorry we're really short on time, so please write them down. Our next speaker, Spencer Swalm. Before I get started on that, when we talk about this once every 10 years, and I mentioned earlier, we're going to get in the boat and get in the driver's seat. This is the year to do it. This is the year. This is when it happens. Our next speaker, Spencer, I'm happy to introduce. He's actually my personal state representative, and the first time I ever got involved in politics, I walked the streets with Spencer and probably knocked on many of your doors. He's the Health and Human Services Committee, House Finance Committee. He's recognized by the NFIB for providing affordable insurance to small businesses in Colorado. Spencer's background is in healthcare, so he's an expert in the area. Colorado's champion for most vulnerable kids, special needs kids, protecting them from indecent predators. He's a former small business owner, and he's got his bachelor's degree from CU and a law degree from DU. Heck of a nice guy, and glad to have him. Please welcome Spencer Swalm.
What a turnout. Wow. Give yourselves a hand. I'm serious. This is exciting. You know, what's most exciting to me is to see so many faces here that I don't recognize. I've been to some, obviously I am a Republican, but I've been to many Republican meetings where you begin to feel like you're part of a pretty small, exclusive club, and when you show up, it's just the same old faces over and over again. But there are many faces here today that I don't recognize, and I'll tell you, that's exciting. And you know, folks, it can't come too soon, not a minute too soon. With you, when you see what is going on, you know, I'm most concerned about what's going on nationally. Frankly, I've gotten to the point where I can hardly stand to watch the news, to see the latest thing that Obama's doing. It's just stunning. Carol Chambers put on a very instructive seminar yesterday afternoon on medical marijuana. Now, you know, frankly, when that first issue came up, I didn't give it much thought. But I've begun learning about this recently, and you know what really set this whole crazy thing in motion? Do you realize it was all tipped off when President Obama in January said that the U.S. attorneys are not going to be enforcing laws against marijuana? So basically, the only industry in this country that Barack Obama wants to deregulate is illegal drugs, and I'm serious. Can you think of any other industry that Barack Obama wants to deregulate? And what have we got? We've got more medical or marijuana dispensaries in the city of Denver under the stewardship of John Hickenlooper, who's now running for governor. We've got Starbucks coffee shops. And you know, we heard yesterday, I mean, a professor from CU, a physician who's a psychiatrist, You know, especially in adolescence, marijuana is bad news, I can tell you. I'm no expert in the field, but it's bad. And Chris Romer, who's running a bill, Democratic senator from Denver, running a bill to try to make it easier or continue this regime that we've got now where it's the Wild West for marijuana. Boy, I'll tell you, the law enforcement officials there were just outraged yesterday, and Chris, of course, is back down on this. But I think his political career is done. If I was somebody running against him, I would beat him bloody with what he's trying to do. And I think we can beat John Hickenlooper bloody with this, because I tell you, people are pissed off. You know, and you know, you can have a discussion about whether or not marijuana should be treated like alcohol or something like that. But the way it's happened, it's just the Wild West. You've got about 5 or 6 physicians who are issuing all these prescriptions for medical marijuana. Most of them can't even practice regular medicine because they've got charges against their license, so they're making a lot of money giving marijuana to people. And how many? There's 37,000 people now that have these prescriptions. The vast majority of them are under 25 years old. How many 25-year-old kids and younger have chronic back pain and glaucoma and all these other things that you're supposed to be using marijuana for? It's unbelievable. I mean, we could go, you know, and then we can talk about health care. You know, it's just frustrating. There's too many targets of opportunity to get started on. And but, you know, the latest thing that the Obama administration's done is to give this exemption for Cadillac union plans. Now, is this unbelievable? How many of you guys are unionized here? Just if you're a member of a union. And that's fine if you are, great. You know, I'm glad you're here. But you know what? I read an editorial in the Wall Street Journal this morning about this and said, you know, the Free Choice Act, which was this terrible thing to allow guys to unionize companies much easier, it'll be irrelevant. Who cares? Because if you're a member of a union under this provision of this health care nonsense, you'll be able to get tax-free health insurance, and all the rest of us who are not members of a union are going to have to pay taxes on those type plans. So who cares about the Free Choice Act? All the union organizer has to say is, you want to get tax-free health insurance? Join the union. It's unbelievable. Now let me talk a little bit about state issues. My concern primarily, I think, at the state level is this. We're more and more becoming an agency of the federal government. I was looking at the state budget this morning before I came over here today. We get about 25% of our funding at the state level now from the feds, and primarily that's Medicaid, which is basically health insurance. It's a welfare program for low-income people, health insurance for low-income people. A big chunk of that is Medicaid, but you know what's really alarming to me is we're going to get more and more federal dollars now for education, K-12. You know what one of the first rule in politics is this rule. It's called the golden rule. The golden rule is that who has the goal makes the rules. And if we're getting money from the feds, guess who's making the rules? The feds do. Now we've got to, and believe me, in the Medicaid arena, the feds bind up what we can do in Medicaid constantly, because they provide 50% of the funding. And for us to change anything in the state Medicaid program, because the feds provide 50% of the funding, we have to go to Congress and ask, Mother, may I? Can I make a change? And frankly, it makes sense to me. You know, I don't think it's not responsible for you to give somebody money without any controls over that money, any more than you give your kids just an unlimited allowance and just say, go, Johnny, go do with it whatever you want. If you're going to give them money, you expect to hold them accountable for that. Well, that's the poison of federal funding for almost anything. And now we're talking more and more about federal money coming down for education. Initially for higher ed, because higher ed is, you know, there's struggles at the state level. The state is broke, and frankly, the state is largely broke because of K-12 funding. Because of Amendment 23 that we passed a few years ago, every year, while we've been going through these budget problems here in the state, 3 minutes, I'll wrap up, I understand.